It's 3 a.m. You're lying in bed, the house is silent, the city is asleep, but your mind is at a rock concert. It's replaying that awkward thing you said in a meeting 2 years ago. It's pre-worrying about a presentation that's 3 weeks away. It's analyzing a weird text message from your friend.
The 3 a.m. audit, I know it well. It's the absolute worst, isn't it? It feels like the entire world finally gets quiet, and that's the exact moment your brain decides to turn its volume all the way up. It begs the question, right? Why does your brain get louder when everything else gets quiet? It's a universal feeling, isn't it? The brain's greatest hits of anxiety and regret on repeat, or my personal favorite, the pre-worry. My mind will construct these incredibly detailed, dramatic scenarios of things that could go wrong, and I'm exhausted before anything has even happened.
Exactly. It's this profound tension, isn't it? Nighttime is supposed to be for rest, for recharging. But for so many of us, it becomes this mental overload zone. And that's what we're diving into today on the Behavior Code.
Yeah, we're going to unpack the psychology of why our brains betray us in the quiet of the night. And this is the important part, we promise that by the end of this episode, you'll not only understand why it happens, but you'll have some real, concrete tools to quiet the noise and finally get some rest.
So stick around, your sleep-deprived brain will thank you.
It's a promise we take seriously, because this isn't just a small annoyance, is it? For millions of people, this nightly battle is a major source of stress and exhaustion. It affects their health, their relationships, their work. It's a silent epidemic of busy minds.
All right, Gabriel. So before we get into the why it happens at night, let's just define our terms. What are we actually talking about when we say overthinking? Is it just thinking a lot?
That's a great question, because the distinction is crucial. In psychology, the term for this is often rumination, and I think that word is so perfect because it comes from the idea of a cow chewing its cud. It's just chewing on the same thing over and over and over again without actually digesting it, without getting any new nutrient.
Right. So there's a difference between problem solving and this kind of looping. Problem solving moves forward, right? It looks for solutions, it makes plans. But overthinking is stuck.
Exactly. It's circular. You're not trying to solve the problem, you're just re-experiencing the problem. You're swimming in the feeling of the problem, the anxiety, the regret, the confusion, without ever getting to the shore. The brain tends to loop on things that are, emotionally unresolved, unfinished business.
I love the analogy of having too many tabs open on your computer browser. During the day, you're so busy clicking between emails and work and life that you don't even notice them. But when you close the lid for the night, all those tabs are still there, running in the background, draining your battery.
That's it. That is the perfect analogy. And each tab is an unfinished emotional thread, a conversation you need to have, a mistake you haven't forgiven yourself for, a decision you're worried you got wrong. And at night, your brain tries to click on all of them at once.
And it feels like the more you try to close those tabs, the more pop-ups you get. Can you give us a concrete example of how this shows up? The difference between problem-solving a situation versus just ruminating on it.
Sure. Let's say you got some critical feedback from your boss. Problem solving sounds like this. Okay, the feedback was harsh, but there's a point in there. I need to be more careful with the data in my reports. Tomorrow, I'm going to block out an hour to double-check my work before I send it. I'll also ask a colleague to give it a quick look. It's forward-looking. It's actionable. Now, rumination on that same feedback sounds totally different. It sounds like, why does she say it so harshly? Does she think I'm incompetent? Everyone else on the team probably thinks I'm a fraud. I remember that other time I made a mistake on a report 2 years ago. I'm definitely going to get fired. I can't believe I messed this up so badly. What's wrong with me? You see the difference? There's no action. It's just a downward spiral of self-judgment.
It's a complete spiral. And it's so seductive because it feels like if you just think about it hard enough, you can find some hidden answer or unlock the secret to why you're feeling that way. But you never do. You just dig yourself deeper into the feeling. Okay, so that brings us to the big question. We have these open tabs all day. Why do they get so much worse at night? What is it about the dark and the quiet that makes them scream for attention?
Well, the most obvious reason is also the most powerful one. There are simply fewer external distractions. During the day, your brain is busy processing thousands of inputs. The sounds of traffic, emails pinging, conversations, what you're going to eat for lunch.
Right, your focus is outward.
Precisely. But when you lie down in a dark, quiet room, all of that external noise disappears. And the brain, which is a meaning-making machine that hates being idle, it turns its focus inward. The volume on your internal world gets turned up because the volume on the external world has been turned down.
And there's actually a neurological reason for this, isn't there? Something called the default mode network?
Yes, the DMN. Think of it as your brain's screensaver. When you're actively focused on a task, the DMN is quiet. But the moment your mind is at rest, when you're not focused on anything in particular, like when you're trying to fall asleep, the DMN fires up. And what does it do? It starts processing your sense of self, your memories, your future anxieties. Basically, all the ingredients for overthinking.
So it's literally the part of the brain for navel gazing.
That's a perfect way to put it. And here's the paradox. You'd think being exhausted would make your brain shut up. But it's the opposite. When you're physically and mentally tired, your prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part of your brain, has less energy. It's your brain's CEO, and at the end of the day, the CEO goes home.
The interns being your more emotional, primitive brain structures like the amygdala. So you have less rational control over your thoughts, just as your brain's internal monologue network is firing on all cylinders. It's a perfect storm. And there's another layer to this, which is hormonal. During the day, our bodies produce cortisol, the stress hormone, which ironically helps us push through challenges and ignore minor worries. At night, cortisol levels naturally dip to allow for rest. But this also means the background noise that was suppressing our anxieties is gone. The gatekeepers have left their posts. So it's not just in our heads, there's a real biological process happening. It's like the moment we decide to sleep, our brain's cleanup crew comes out. But instead of quietly taking out the trash, they start loudly analyzing every single piece of it. So with the CEO of the brain checked out and the hormonal gatekeepers off duty, all those unresolved thoughts and feelings can have a wild party. That makes so much sense. Okay, so we know what's happening in the brain, but let's go a layer deeper. What's underneath all those looping thoughts? Because it's usually not just about, that one email you forgot to send.
Almost never. This is the heart of it, I think. Overthinking is very often a form of emotional avoidance in disguise.
Say more about that. That sounds really important.
Well, our brains love problems they can solve. They love logic and plans and action items. What they don't like are messy, amorphous feelings like anxiety or regret or a deep sense of uncertainty about the future.
Right. You can't put feel less sad on a to-do list and check it off.
Exactly. So instead of sitting with the uncomfortable raw feeling of, say, anxiety, the brain converts it into a series of problems it can try to solve. So instead of feeling the anxiety, you start thinking, did I lock the door? What if I offended Sarah today? What if I get fired next month? What was that weird mole on my arm? It's a clever trick. The thinking feels productive, but it's really just a distraction from the core emotion you don't want to feel.
Wow, so the brain is trying to solve a feeling as if it were a logic puzzle. And of course, it can't, so it just spins its wheels, generating more and more problems to solve.
That's the loop. All those feelings you've been too busy to process during the day, they don't just go away, they wait. And when you're finally still and quiet, they surface, and your brain, in a panic, starts overthinking to keep you from having to truly feel them. And this is why uncertainty is such a huge trigger for overthinking. We hate uncertainty, so our brain will spin up 1,000 different worst-case scenarios, not to torture us, but in a strange attempt to be prepared. If it can imagine every possible negative outcome, it feels like it has some control. But it's a false control that only creates more anxiety.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet by writing a detailed report on the history of plumbing. The activity feels related and important, but it does absolutely nothing to stop the drip. And in this case, the dripping is the unprocessed emotion. And sometimes those thoughts, they get really personal, don't they? They move from what if scenarios to something much more fundamental.
Yes, this is what we could call the identity loop. Overthinking isn't just a random series of thoughts, it reinforces a narrative about who we are. If you're constantly replaying your mistakes, the story you're telling yourself is, I am someone who messes things up.
It's a who am I or what did I do wrong loop. That's a deep one. It's like you're putting yourself on trial every single night with your brain acting as the prosecutor.
Totally. And it loves to call witnesses from the past. This brings up something called social memory replay. It's why past conversations, especially awkward or conflict ridden ones, tend to dominate our bedtime thoughts. Your brain is trying to make sense of social interactions, to learn the rules, to figure out, am I safe? Am I accepted?
Oh my God, yes. Suddenly you're thinking about something you said in middle school and cringing under the covers. Like, why, brain? Why now?
Because our social survival has always been paramount. Being rejected from the tribe was a death sentence historically. So our brains are exquisitely sensitive to social missteps. At night, with nothing else to do, it runs diagnostics on our social standing. It's an ancient software running on modern hardware. And the result is, yeah, cringing about middle school at 3 a.m. And that's the core question. Do I belong? Every social replay is an attempt to answer that. And this deeply affects our self narrative. If you constantly replay moments where you felt awkward or said the wrong thing, you're not just remembering, you are actively practicing the belief that you are awkward. You're carving that identity deeper into your mind every night.
It's fascinating that our brain's ancient wiring is causing us to lose sleep over a text message we sent. It treats a vague text from a friend with the same level of threat analysis as being exiled from the tribe. The stakes feel just as high in that moment. Okay, so let's piece this together. You have a thought, maybe about a mistake you made. That thought is actually a cover for an underlying emotion like anxiety. But then it doesn't stop there, does it? The body gets involved.
This is the anxiety amplification cycle. It's a vicious feedback loop. Thought creates emotion, which creates a physical response. So the thought, what if my boss was mad at me, creates the emotion of anxiety. That anxiety then triggers your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response.
Your heart starts beating faster, your chest feels tight, maybe you feel a pit in your stomach.
Exactly. And now your brain perceives those physical signals and it says, whoa, my heart is racing. Something must be really wrong. That thought about my boss must be super important and true. The physical response becomes evidence that validates and amplifies the original thought.
And the spiral begins. The thought gets louder, the feeling gets stronger, the physical symptoms get more intense, and suddenly you're in a full-blown anxiety spiral, all while lying in bed.
And what do most of us do when that happens? We try to fight it. We say, stop thinking, just stop it. Think about something else. Sleep.
Which, of course, makes it a million times worse.
A million times. There's a psychological principle called the cognitive rebound effect, or ironic process theory. The classic experiment is try not to think of a white bear. And what's the only thing you can think of?
A white bear. In a snowstorm with a polar bear cub.
Exactly. When you try to suppress a thought, one part of your brain is pushing it away, but another part is constantly checking to make sure you're not thinking about it, which of course brings the thought right back to the forefront. So telling yourself to stop thinking is like pouring gasoline on the fire. You get into a war with your own mind, a war you can never win. Fighting a thought gives it credibility. It signals to your brain that this thought is a serious threat that requires a massive amount of attention and energy. You're accidentally fueling the very fire you're trying to put out.
So, the more you try to slam the door on the white bear, the more it kicks the door down and brings its whole family with it. This is probably the most common mistake people make when they can't sleep. They get angry at their own mind. Okay, we have painted a very vivid and slightly terrifying picture of what's happening in our minds at night. So now, the most important part. How do we interrupt this cycle? If we can't just tell ourselves to stop, what do we do?
The key is to change your relationship with the thoughts. Instead of engaging with them or fighting them, you just notice them. The first technique is simply labeling.
Like giving the thought a name?
Exactly. So when the thought, I can't believe I said that stupid thing today, pops up, instead of jumping into it, you calmly say to yourself, that's the social anxiety thought. Or there's the work worry story. You don't argue with it, you don't believe it, you just label it, like you're a librarian cataloging books. It creates distance.
That's powerful. It takes you out of the story and makes you the observer of the story. Okay, what else?
Externalize them. Get them out of your head. Keep a notepad by your bed. When the thoughts start spinning, turn on a dim light and just write them down. Every single worry, to-do item, fear. Don't edit, don't judge, just dump them onto the page. You can even use the voice memo app on your phone.
I love this, and there's a specific method for this, isn't there? The parking lot method?
Yes, I love this one. After you've written everything down, you say to your brain, okay, thank you for these reminders. I have them all here. They are safe. They are parked in the parking lot for the night. We will deal with them tomorrow at 8 a.m. You're creating closure. You're giving your brain the reassurance it needs that these important items won't be forgotten, so it can finally stand down. That's when you can move from mental techniques to physical ones. The anxiety cycle is both mental and physical, remember? So you can interrupt it from the body side. The simplest way is through breathing. When you're anxious, your breath is short and shallow. If you can deliberately slow it down, you send a powerful signal back to your brain that the crisis is over. Precisely. Or techniques like progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense and then release different muscle groups. This breaks the tension pattern in the body and gives your mind a concrete physical sensation to focus on, instead of the racing thoughts. You're changing the channel from your head to your body.
That's a fantastic, tangible action. It honors the brain's intention. It says, I hear you, this is important, but it also establishes a boundary. We are not doing this now. What if someone tries that and the thoughts still keep coming? Like the physiological sigh, right? A double inhale through the nose and a long, slow exhale through the mouth. It's been shown to immediately calm the nervous system. You're giving those open tabs a command to save and close for the night. That is so practical and so powerful.
So, as we bring this to a close, I think the most important reframe for anyone listening is this. Overthinking does not make you broken. It's not a personal failure.
Yes, that's so critical.
It's actually a protection mechanism. Your brain is trying to help. It's trying to solve perceived threats, learn from past mistakes, and keep you safe. It's just really bad at it sometimes, especially when it's tired and left to its own devices in the dark. It's like a well-intentioned but very clumsy guard dog.
I love that. So instead of being angry at your brain, maybe you can have a little compassion for it. It's just doing its job, albeit in a very unhelpful way. The final message really is that awareness is the key. Just understanding why this happens, that alone can reduce the intensity. It loosens the grip.
Really does. You realize it's not you, it's just a pattern, a predictable neurological storm, and you don't have to get swept away by it.
So, our prompt for you all this week is simple. The next time you find yourself awake at night with your mind racing, just try to get curious. Instead of fighting, just ask, hello, thought, I see you. What are you trying to protect me from right now? You don't even have to answer. Just asking the question can change everything.
That's it for this episode of The Behavior Code. If you found this helpful, please consider sharing it with a friend who might also be losing sleep to their own brain.
You can find all our past episodes and show notes on our website, thebehaviorcodepod.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode. Until then, be kind to your mind.